Finally, we can fly. Finally. Amane,
大丈夫。怖くない。怖くない。
you totally are.
みんなが作ってくれた翼は私のなんかよりずっと優れている。だから大丈夫。
Yes.
さっき小鳥が恐怖心を追い払ってくれたし。
Did she really?
でもいざとなったら頼んだぞ葵くん。
Leave it to me. This is why I trained on the simulator until I got sick of it. In my head, I go over the steps for takeoff. The most dangerous part of the flight is the landing. However, the takeoff is also dangerous, and accidents can easily occur. This time I can rely on Amane, but I need to learn a lot to understand even a little about how it's done. Ageha taps the canopy from outside. Amane and I reply, ready, and Ageha walks round to the side of the aircraft and lifts up the left wing that was in contact with the ground. The aircraft becomes level. The wings of a glider are really long, and it can't stand on its wheels like a normal plane, so it is placed with one of the wings touching the ground. That's why, when launching it, someone has to run along holding the wing up until it gains lift. Ageha, who is holding up the wing, gives the signal that launch preparations are complete to Kotori, who is waiting far away.
行くぞ葵くん。
As Amane speaks quietly to me, the aircraft suddenly lifts up. Pulled by the winch, the glider quickly accelerates. The wheels bounce along the unpaved runway. Ageha ran along while holding up the left wing. I look at her from the side and our eyes meet.
行ってこい。
A few seconds after the aircraft started moving along the runway, it felt like it was floating upwards. That was after only moving along a few meters. Then it starts to float slightly while accelerating.
上昇するぞ。
Amane pulled back on the yoke. The aircraft tilts upwards. I don't know what the angle was, but I felt like it was a really steep angle. Look at this 3D. Looks like a toy. Whoa! My whole body was shaking from the G-force. It felt like the floating sensation was equal to the feeling of being pulled by the winch. The opening song is playing in the background. That's kinda nice. I look down through the canopy. However, at this angle, the main wings block my field of vision. I could hardly see the ground at all. How high are we now? Being unsure of the situation sowed the seeds of fear in my mind.
平行線を切り離す。
The feeling of being pulled suddenly disappears, and the aircraft floats gently as it has been set free. That's because it has been released from the winch. We are flying. From that moment, the glider was no longer borrowing power from something else. It was flying all by itself. I have never experienced this before, the strange feeling of floating. The sound of the wind is extremely loud.
葵くん、平行策を確認してくれ。
I, sitting in the back seat, turn around to see the tow rope that has been safely released. The rope, with a small parachute attached, falls slowly to the ground. Release confirmed.
よし、離陸成功だ。
The glider was able to fly into the sky without any problems.
飛んでる。ちゃんと空飛んでるよ。アゲハ、見て見て、飛んでるよ。見てるよ。すごい。私たちが作った翼が飛んでる。 へえ、 ロープが降りてきた。回収しとかなくちゃ。いいな葵くん。
We really are flying. This is awesome.
下は見ない方がいいぞ。怖いからな。
You don't need to look down. Please keep looking straight ahead.
ラジャー。
I checked the ground in place of Amane. We are about 300 meters above the ground. Oh, Ageha is going to get the tow rope. The tow rope, in other words, the rope coming out from the winch, was attached to the bottom of the aircraft by a hook. The hook can be detached any time from the cockpit. This is usually done just before the glider reaches the point above the winch. Even if there is a problem with the controls for detaching it, once the glider goes past the point of being directly above the winch and is pulled from behind, it automatically releases. Once it's released, a small parachute is opened and it falls slowly back to the ground. If it's not detached, it can cause a terrible accident, so we must check to see if it has been released. As I sat in the back seat, I enjoyed the view from 300 meters above the ground. We are overlooking the city. I could see the roof of Flying Fish Manor, which was quite close to the runway. I could also see Aga's house, which looked tiny. Ah, it's the school! Wow, we are really flying.
あんまり飛んでると言わないでくれないか。意識してしまうじゃないか。
Oh, sorry. Holding my tongue, I simply enjoy my first flight. When I saw the glider flying from below, it looked like it was really carefree as it flew, but once you actually ride it, it really does feel carefree after all. However, hearing the rushing sound of the wind and the feeling that the wind resistance goes right into my body are things that you don't get from the simulator. Those things are the forces that keep the glider, which has no thrust, in the air. Even when the aircraft moves down slowly, it doesn't feel like it's falling as it flies leisurely through the wind.
この翼はすごいな。
What's that?
安定感が抜群にいい。本当に私が作ったものとはまるで違う。
It's all thanks to those guys.
ああ、降りたらいっぱいハグしよう。旋回する。
She said as she tilts the yoke to the right. The aircraft leans to the right all of a sudden. Wow! Amane returns the yoke to its original position and corrects the aircraft, which had banked too far, but she moves it too much and it then banks to the left. Amane, what are you doing?
だってこれ。何やってるのかしら。あれさあ、主翼のテストかな。にしてはなんかヤバげだね。もしもし、あまねちゃん。もしもし、あまねちゃん。
We received transmission from Kotori.
フラフラしてるけど大丈夫？大丈夫じゃないかも。
Amane, calm down. Since a few moments earlier, Amane, who had tried to level the aircraft, leaned it too far and then back again, over and over.
エルロンが敏感すぎて。葵くん、出番よ。
No, okay, Amane, I'm taking over. Amane lets go of the controls. In her place, I take over the controls from the back seat. Double-seater gliders have completely the same controls in both the front and back seats, just like I did in the simulator. I tried turning it using the yoke to control the ailerons and the elevator, as well as the pedals to control the rudder. I tilt the yoke to the right and the aircraft banks. You really only need to move the yoke back to the middle after banking, but in this case, it needs to be moved a little in the opposite direction. So this is counter steer. I get it.
どうしたの、葵くん。
The reaction of the ailerons is too sensitive, but it's okay, this won't be a problem. When I say that the reaction is too sensitive, I mean that if I just move the yoke a little, the ailerons move more than normal, which causes the aircraft to lean too far. They're misaligned. If Amane, who is really clumsy, we had to use the controls like this, it could be a bit dangerous.
大丈夫かな。大丈夫よ。いざとなったら湖に飛び込めばなんとかなるわ。いや、ならないでしょそれ。 地面に落ちるよりマシよ。お、治ってきた。
Phew, it seems like we are level again.
丈夫なのか、葵君。
Yeah, something like that's no problem. It's a little hard to maneuver, but it should be fine once I get used to it. Okay, I'll pilot it for a while. For now, I'll just fly once around the runway. I slowly turn the aircraft and make it turn around above Kotori and Ageha. From above, I can see them both waving. I wonder if Anshan is watching us too. I can just about make out the roof of Anshan's factory from here. I turned a little more and now we are above the lake. Shall we go to the other side of the lake?
今日は気流が安定していて、上昇気流を見つけるのが難しそうだ。
If we can't ride the vertical drafts, we can't raise the altitude. Even though we call it flying, in actuality the glider is continually falling slowly, so if there are no vertical drafts, we will have to land at some point.
この翼ならいけるかもしれない。
Roger that. If it looks bad, we'll turn around and come back.
どこ行くんだろう。風車の丘に向かうみたい。届くかな。さあ。
The glider proceeds to fly across the lake. The altitude is gradually dropping, but we are right for the time being.
ケーキは私が見ているから。
Thank you. I learned how to read the instruments with a simulator, but I'm still not used to it. We just flew straight forward, and after a short time, the other side of the lake came into view. There we saw the gentle slopes of the hill and the windmills lined up on top. Today the wind is quite weak, so they weren't really turning that much. Ah, twin tails!
あれ。
Ah, even more twin tails! Wait.
ほら、あそこあそこ、こっち来るよ。飛行機かな。
They look the same, so they must be twins. They are the twin tails twins!
あ、ほんとだ。姉さんって昔から目がいいわよね。しかし、やけに低いところを飛んでるのね。速度も出ていないようだし。
From over there, we saw you flying for the first time, Amane.
ああ、あの時か。
That was the day I came back to this town, the day it all began. That time, Kotori was waving her hand at the glider. Did you see her?
いや、それどころじゃなかった。あの日は気流がいい具合に荒れていて、生きた心地がしなかった。
Oh. While we were speaking, we crossed the lake and are now above the windmills. Just like Amane did on that day, we slowly turned above the hill. It felt really strange to look down at the giant windmills from above.
ゆっくり回ってる。変な飛行機だね。あれはグライダーじゃないかしら。グライダー？
Well, with that expression, they totally look the same. But I guess they have different hair ornaments. And I think, yeah, their skirts have a different color too. And what is this? The clock? A pocket watch? Huh.
ええ、多分だけど。グライダー。すごくゆっくり飛ぶんだね。エンジンを積めばもっと早く飛べるのに。どうしてそうしないのかしら。
Man, she's pretty critical, isn't she?
葵くん、だいぶ高度が下がってきているぞ。
Roger, heading back. We can't stay here for long. We need to go back across the lake while we still have enough altitude. As we turn back towards the direction of the other side of the lake. Huh? I could see people on top of the hill. There are two of them. They must be girls. It seemed like they were looking up at us. They like gliders, the same as Kotori. While making that up in my head, I leave Windmill Hill behind me.
Oh, 行っちゃったね。ふわふわしてて、なんだか頼りなかったわね。うん。でも、
I can see it already. She here is more the calm and nice type, and she here on the right is more the tsundere type. Huh?
飛んでるって感じがした。あ、戻ってきたよ。だいぶ低くなってるわね。着陸するみたい。もしもし、葵、聞こえる？
Loud and clear. Now commencing landing.
了解。着陸するって。
Well then, I return the controls to you.
了解。
Nodding nervously, Amane grips the yoke. It's said that landing is the most common time for glider accidents to occur, because it's going from flying to being in contact with the ground. One mistake can mean it's very easy to suffer some kind of physical damage. The landing is difficult, and when you push the yoke forward to lower the altitude, the speed can increase. If you're traveling too fast, there will be a large impact when landing, and you won't be able to stop after landing. It's possible to go past the end of the runway and collide into something. That's why you need to lower the altitude while keeping the speed as low as possible. For that reason, the main wings of gliders are equipped with several types of lift-reducing apparatuses. By reducing lift, the altitude can be reduced without increasing the speed. Even though a glider is quite simply built, there are several different devices equipped for takeoff and landing.
降りてきた。いいよいいよ、そのまま。
Ack! Amane, in a way that could almost be described as a rough landing, sets us down on the ground with a feeling like we were falling. The glider returning to the ground ran along for a few meters before the wheel brakes stops it.
おかえり。
As we open the canopy, Agia thrusts her face inside. We made it! Taking off the seatbelt, I clamber out of the narrow cockpit. Amane, are you okay?
大丈夫だ。
Amane slowly takes off her seatbelt. I get out first and help Amane get out too. It's been a while, well, about 10 minutes, but I strangely missed being able to put my feet on the ground.
どうだった？
Kotori, arriving a little later than Ageha, rushes ahead and starts firing questions at us. Well, how should I put it? It was awesome! It felt totally incredible. No other impressions came to mind.
やっぱり。
How long were we flying for?
だいたい15分ってとこかな。ねえねえ、風車の丘まで行ったの？
Yeah, just for a little while. I got a pretty good look at it.
いいな、いいな。お疲れ様です、Amane先輩。
Agia passes some mineral water to Amane. The cockpit, that was continually being hit with direct sunshine, was unbearably hot inside.
ありがとう。どうでしたか？主翼の具合は。以前よりも全然滑空が滑らかでいい感じだった。よし。でも途中でフラフラしてましたよね。ああ、エルロンがピーキーすぎた。少し調整しないと。他には何か問題ありましたか？そうだな。
While Kotori and I were overwhelmed with excitement beside us, Agia and Amane were talking about it in a very matter-of-fact manner.
もう少し飛んでみないとわからないが、 今のところそのくらいかな。了解っす。じゃあすぐエルロンの調整だけしちゃいましょう。
Agea enthusiastically goes over to get the tools.
何してるの？みんな手伝ってよ。今日中に飛べるだけ飛ぶんだから。
The testing has only just started. Then we did a few more tests. The main objective for today was to test the main wings that had just been completed and check the repaired instruments. And also to give me flight training. Thanks to the work I had put into the simulator, I was able to control it from the very beginning. I only realized this from flying the real thing, but the simulator that Amane made gives a pretty realistic feeling of flying. I have to say, that's what I'd expected of her. After adjusting the ailerons, I practiced takeoff and landing and was able to use the basic maneuvers. As I returned from the 5th flight, Agea came over to us. What does she have to say? Let's find out next time on If My Heart Had Wings. Thanks for watching and have a nice day. Bye bye.